What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones, and AJ, we're here for another episode of the UNC basketball show. A lot to talk about in this show. I was trying to remember again. I think every time we hop on one, I sit here and try to remember the last time we did one, because I know we didn't do one last week because football and everything going on.
And David and I have one. And David and I had one last week.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
We had football player. We record these on Wednesday, and I've got football again today. We get the true freshman early enrollees, which is very interesting. So we've been rolling out those freshman profiles.
Yeah,
that's what that's all about. So we get 8 more kids today. So we were challenged to do it last week because of that, and David and I had a pod.
Yeah,
David and I can't. We're not doing one this week because his team he coaches is in the state quarterfinals in Tennessee.
Nice, man.
So.
Good stuff, David. Hopefully they can bring home a little state championship over there. I always enjoy when you and David do a podcast too. So
I love doing it. And I apologize we haven't done more. And usually we would have done a lot more, but his schedule, my schedule, we lost people on staff and we're training new people. We're getting them kind of up to snuff. I don't want to rush it. So I've had to do a lot more of the maintenance and other things that people don't always, you don't see it if you're not a subscriber, that's for sure. And so I've had to do a lot more and I haven't had as much time. And as you know, I've got the other stuff going on at home with my wife's health and stuff like that requires time. Yeah. So because of that, Dave and I haven't been able to align as much to do them as we want, but we will do one Sunday. Going into the final week. We're going to try to do a weekly one now for the rest of the year.
I'm looking forward to this.
And especially if his team loses, but if they keep winning, then, we'll have to deal with that. But I love doing them with David. He is so good.
Oh, he's fantastic.
He is so good.
Fantastic. If you're not looking at his film reviews, I tell people all the time, I say
his connections.
I retweet them all the time too. Go look at his film reviews. They're absolutely fantastic. I don't see anybody else in this UNC space doing that kind of analysis especially on the video side. So go watch them. They're absolutely they're amazing.
And let's remember, here's a guy who is so connected. He knows. Look, we knew about Roy long before it ever came out because of his connections. To me, it wasn't enough sources to run it. And I also don't think getting something out there like that before someone like Roy was ready to get it out wasn't right. I don't have to break everything. I mean, I'm not so fueled by just being first. We're not, as people who followed us for a long time now, get it right and do it right. Other than being first. But David was hearing that from some assistant coaches he knew that had like a sort of a connection. They had branches that touched Chapel Hill. But he's so well connected on so many staffs around the country. So when David says things, people need to listen. He knows what the hell he's talking about.
Yes.
From an analytical standpoint and from a connection standpoint and from the grapevine, so to speak. He is absolutely clued in with the grapevine. So this is a David Sisk promo show here, by the way.
Yeah, we got a lot of love for David Sisk. So that being said, stay tuned. Obviously, more pods with him will be coming up over the next few weeks. And again, I know people enjoy him. I listen to him. I edit him too, but I listen to him all the way through when you guys do a pod because I really, really enjoy him. But AJ, let's real quickly. I'm going to run through just a couple of topics. We're going to hit on RJ's big performance against Miami. I mean, I haven't had a chance to talk about it with you, so I'm selfishly going to sit here a few minutes and talk about that because I want to get your insights and perspective on it, especially a guy that's been covering not only Carolina but college sports and sports in general for as long as you have. We'll talk a little bit later about Carolina's kind of remaining schedule and then look ahead to state a little bit later as well. Real quickly too, show is brought to you by The Rogue Shop and MyPerfectFranchise.net. We'll talk about them a little bit later on, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But AJ, let's start with RJ. Like I just mentioned, 42-point Smith Center record against Miami, and what was a grinded out, very weird. I am still trying to figure out what the heck happened. I had to go watch the highlights multiple times in that game to kind of figure out what the heck happened in this game, especially down the stretch. But RJ Davis, absolutely fantastic. Like I mentioned, career high 42, Smith Center record. And I think the most impressive part about it for me, AJ, is that 14 from 22 from the floor. Because you see it a lot with guys. You go, oh, this guy had 50, 40 some points. Oh, he shot the ball 30 times. That makes a little more sense. 14 to 22 from the floor, 7 of 11 from three-point land, and 7 of 9 from the free throw line. Not to mention, I think people are not talking about this, when you score 42 points, that's great. But he also had 6 rebounds in there as well. So it's not like you just look at the stat sheet and all he did was shoot the ball 30 times and score. Yeah.
Steals.
No, man, just such an impressive game from him. And as somebody, obviously, he came in 4 years ago. We've seen his career blossom. We've seen him grow, especially this year, into the player that he has become. It's been a fantastic journey to see. We know he always had that scoring potential. We even saw it, during his freshman season when they were struggling. You could always see it with RJ. But man, have those dots started to connect this year? And I think it was a culmination of how good he's been. For me, that performance against Miami, AJ, and a lot of people were tweeting this out, but for me, that ACC Player of the Year discussion's over now. And, we'll do a separate drop on this, but, maybe there's a discussion for him being a legitimate candidate for that National Player of the Year. But as someone who was in the arena, AJ, talk to me about that RJ performance and where maybe it stacks up for you in terms of all-time great performances that you've been able to witness.
Well, just as a teaser, we're going to have a daily drop you and I are going to do on the National Player of the Year. Like, how does he fit in there? Because obviously Zach Edey is pretty well established at the top, but is there an avenue? We're going to hit that on daily drop for Friday that we're going to run. It's funny. You were talking about, we've seen that before. I immediately went back to the Notre Dame game of the ACC tournament his freshman year. Mm. And he had that huge second half, hit some really big shots. And it's like, that's the snapshot in time where you see him as young RJ, freshman, a guy that was really having some struggle that you're feeling his way around. Roy wanted Caleb at the point, RJ at the 2, and they were just trying to get it to work, and it didn't really work that great, although they got to the NCAA tournament and they had their moments. And I remember seeing that, and that was something that apparently it was somebody from Stepanak reached out and said something to the effect of, that's what we saw all the time, but in bunches. Mm-hmm. Stepanak, Bishop Stepanak, whatever it is, in Westchester County. He's the all-time leading prep scorer up there. And that's why I wove that in to my column about him, because the guy that they sent to Chapel Hill, he was done with high school. They send him off, go have a party. Go be you, RJ. Go be the best version of you. And we've seen him bounce through that process for a while, and it's gotten to the point now where, now that he had that crossover step back, I don't think that he could surprise us anymore.
No.
He is rarely does an athlete reach a point in his realm, and I have to clarify that because RJ is not an NBA player, but rarely does an athlete reach a point where they don't surprise you anymore because they're so good. And what they do is so wow. How many times has RJ scored baskets this year where people's mouths are open? The lower mouth just the jaw drops a little bit. That was a jaw-dropping play. I did it.
And I was watching the game, and AJ, I'm not lying. I'm glad you brought that up, because I literally, in my own head, I think I even said it out loud, was kind of like, whoa, that was a move.
JB Rick's news channel 14. What's the Spectrum channel? Because I don't get it anymore. I have DirecTV.
I think it's 4. I don't have.
Yeah, Spectrum. Anyway, if you're in North Carolina, if you
know JB.
If you have Spectrum, you know who JB Ricks is. JB's a really good guy, big Detroit guy, Michigan State guy. Mm-hmm. So he has a tweet that he put out of RJ's shot, and he's just like, oh, what the hell? He's laughing because it was so amazing. There were a couple of holy S's I heard on Press Row.
I believe it.
You don't hear a lot of commentary. You don't hear a lot of reactionary commentary on Press Row as of, oh my God, look at that. Because so many of us have seen so much, and we're also in a different zone than the fan is because we're working. And a lot of times it's just, okay, that happened. No matter how amazing it was or no matter how horrible it was, you might get actually more reaction to horrible stuff because the snide remarks and whatnot.
Yeah.
That was one of those plays where everybody was saying something. Mm. And that was almost like, okay, well, RJ has reached a point now where not a lot of Carolina players have reached. Now, he hasn't finished it off yet because the career is still ongoing. There are more things he can achieve. But that performance, which was needed. Otherwise, they would have suffered a horrible, horrible loss. And we can get into that in a few minutes. But that performance to me is the kind of performance that most people who were there will remember being there, and they'll tell that story in a long time. People who watched it on TV will remember it. I remember Shammond Williams 42 in double overtime at Georgia Tech. I didn't cover that. I was just getting started in business at that time. I did cover Harrison Barnes' 40-point game against Clemson in the ACC tournament. I covered that he did it on 17 shots. I'll never forget that. Yeah. I did not cover Tyler Hansborough's 40-point game against Georgia Tech as a freshman. I was covering the game at NC State that night. You were there.
As a very young kid,
I was covering a game at NC State that night. I don't remember who Wolfpack was playing, but Georgia Tech, Carolina. I don't remember. They must have been playing Duke or somebody if I was there, because Georgia Tech was still good at that time. They were 2 years removed from a national title. They still had, pretty good talent. 06, I can't remember if B.J. Elder was still there and Ismail Muhammad and those guys, but they were still pretty good, had a good name. So I didn't cover that, but I don't think I've covered any other 40-point games. I covered a lot of J.J. Redick in the mid-30s, low 30s. And what he reminded me of that was a JJ play, and that was sort of a JJ game. And I know a lot of fans don't want to hear me talk about him, but he's amazing. He used to bail out Duke of some really bad possessions, a lot of them, back when Paulus was the point guard. And even though they had Sheldon Williams, Duke was not great at the wing, or at the point. So he had to create a lot of shots on his own and get them through stages of the game. And that's what RJ did the other night. And he's done it before. He did it against Wake, although they ended up beating Wake pretty handily. But some of his other games, he tried to do it at Georgia Tech and it didn't work. Yeah. The other night was sort of like Georgia Tech, and Carolina lost that game. That's why the other night, to me, Monday night, it's a great win for Carolina because they got the win, because the loss would have been horrific. And they are so fortunate they had RJ going for 42, because had he gone for 40, maybe they wouldn't have won the game. So they did lose it at Georgia Tech. To me, that was, okay, when they get knocked out of the NCAA tournament, it's going to look a lot like that. And they need RJ. If they need RJ to score, 30 plus in multiple games in the tournament, he's capable of doing it. That's a positive. But the negative is that he has to do it. And that's one of the concerns. I had a drop ran Wednesday about 3 concerns for Carolina entering March, and that's one of those concerns. But if one of your concerns envelops the fact that you have a guy that could go for 36 against Wake and 42 against Miami, it's not like it's a horrible concern. Because at least you have that, and they know they have a guy who could put the team on the shoulders. And we're going to do the National Player of the Year talk on the drop for Friday, but I've got some pretty interesting thoughts about why I think perhaps he still had, like, the window is slightly ajar for him to possibly sneak into that serious conversation, if there is even a discussion at this point about it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm looking forward to that drop, because I think it's definitely an interesting topic to hit on. And I think, again, that Miami game, kind of everybody knew how good of a season he was, especially if you're an ACC fan. He's the ACC Player of the Year. I mean, he solidified that. It's not even a competition for me anymore with that Miami performance. It wasn't really even competition before that, in my opinion, with how good he's been. ACC leading scorer, 6th in the country in scoring right now, which is 2nd in Power 5 conferences, with Zach Edey just being a little bit above him in there. But still, I think that for me solidified just how good of a year he's having. And he's a guy that's going to have his jersey in the Carolina rafters. I mean,
winning that ACC Player of the Year will get him there.
Exactly. And I think for me, that's,
I do think, check. I said to a couple of guys on press row fairly late in that game, or maybe it was the end of the first half. He hit a 3 late in the first half. He had 21 at halftime. And I said, he must have heard Hunter Salas's footsteps.
Yeah. Creeping up.
Because Salas made a push. If there was anybody that was going to crack that discussion, Salas made a push Saturday. Now, last night, it's gone. I mean, Wake did what a lot of people shouldn't be surprised Wake did.
No, I wasn't surprised. Wasn't surprised at all, really.
That was a pathetic performance by the Demon Deacons, especially in the second half. And Salas didn't do anything. So it's RJ's award now. I do think that there's some interesting competition for Rookie of the Year, with Marcus Burton and with Carlton up there at Pitt. And, of course, Jared is unbelievable at Duke. He's been playing so well lately. But I think Marcus Burton, especially after last night, he might be the front runner for that. But I do agree with you that he's going to win ACC Player of the Year. It's going to be interesting to see what happens the next couple of weeks, because for him to get to be National Player of the Year, and I know we're going to talk a lot about this on Friday, he might need the other guys to not play great, because he's probably going to have 35 and 40-point games. And I don't think 35 and 40-point games are really what they want moving forward. If you're going to script victories, I don't think you're going to go one guy in double figures, he's in his 40s, because someone is going to figure out a way to face guard him and shut him down. And then what you got?
Yeah, exactly.
So I addressed I addressed 3 concerns in the drop Wednesday. So go watch that. We're not going to hit on those here, but I don't think North Carolina is playing its best basketball right now. I don't think it has played its best basketball since January. And I think that there are some serious issues that need to be worked through. And I believe that they can be worked through, Jacob, but I'm not sure that they will be. I think that Hubert's coaching a little bit more not to lose. He's shortened the rotation a little bit too much on the bench. Yeah. And in late game, I don't really know what the delay game is. I think he's going to it too soon. They're not handling it well. A lot of times you make turnovers for 2 reasons. You're either way too aggressive or you're not aggressive enough. You're too passive. A lot of the turnovers they had against Miami the other night, those entry passes, were either too aggressive or too passive, right? They've been turning the ball over late in games a lot when they're either Syracuse, they were trying to catch up, and he had made that tweak, putting Armando at the top of the point of the zone offensively. Didn't work. And the other games, they get too passive when they're trying to milk the clock, so to speak, and drain the clock to win a game. I don't know. There are a lot of things that I think we need to see change in order for belief that they're going to make a deep run in the tournament to become more prevalent in my thinking, and I'm sure a lot of other people's thinking as well.
Yeah, I have the same concern, or not concerns necessarily, but concerns surrounding the team with the things that you're saying, because I tweeted it out on Tuesday. And what I said is, and it's funny that what you just said about RJ, because I'm going to bring that up on the drop, because my question is, okay, for RJ to become a, potentially, player of the year in the country, he's going to have a few more of these games. But I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, well, that's great if he does that. But the problem is, if that's the case, then that's not a positive.
What does that say?
It's not a positive for a Carolina as a basketball team, because I thought, again, RJ bailed them out on Monday night, because if you go look at the stat sheet, AJ, nobody else was even in double figures. And that we've seen at times this year how good. I go back to that Duke game where RJ didn't have a massive game in that game, but it was because Ingram was on fire. It was because Cormac hit shots, because Armando was fantastic. That's Carolina as a total package. And if they're going to make that run in the tournament like everybody wants them to, they need more of that. They don't need RJ dropping 35 a night. It's great that he can do that. And like you mentioned, it's great that they have that option, but that is not a recipe for success long-term for this team if they ultimately want to cut down the nets. It's just not. We've seen so many examples of it.
If they don't win the national championship and they get knocked out at some point, it's going to look like the other night.
Yeah, exactly.
Cormac and Harrison were 6 for 26 combined. Armando got 4 shots.
It's just not good enough.
There you go. That's it. I mean, it's not rocket science.
No.
But the thing is, though, is that I do think that even with a lot of the concerns that we're hitting on right now, and a lot of other people are hitting on, they've won 3 in a row. They're 22-6. They're 14-3. They're in position to get the number 1 seed in the West region of the NCAA tournament. So it's not like they're dog meat. There are so many things that they do well, and that even when they don't play particularly well in a game, they could still beat Miami, which has talent. I know they were down 2 starters, but still, I think Miami would have beaten a lot of teams in the country Monday night. Credit the Hurricanes for the way they played. I thought defensively, they were very aggressive with their denials, causing a lot of issues for Carolina with the post entries. We wrote, Bryant Balcom wrote a piece about that. That was an outstanding piece that ran yesterday that actually hit Sharpbeat a couple of times. So a lot of people want that information. They see it too, and they're trying to get a grasp of what the problem was. And the players told us and Hubert told us it was pretty simple stuff. I think the Virginia game without Cormac going for 18, they lose that one. But I think they were better in that game because there was more on their plate. There's so much on your plate when you play UVA because they take you out of all of your comfort zones on both ends of the floor. So you have to put in so many resources internally and as a group to be somewhat normal against them that it just takes so much out of you. So I asked a couple of the guys Monday night, I said, they grind you down. They grind you down to the nub, and you got to turn right around 48 hours later and play a team that is the polar opposite in approach. Yeah. And I asked a couple of the guys if they had maybe some trouble getting up for Miami, especially coming in with a 6-game losing streak. They said no, and maybe they were ready to play. I said the other night I wasn't sure they were ready to play. Perhaps I was off on that a little bit, but I think that even you could be ready to play and still have heavy legs.
Yeah, of course.
And I think they had heavy legs and heavy brains the other night. They were not smart a lot of the time. A lot of those turnovers and trying to enter the ball into the post were just bad decisions, and they weren't doing things fundamentally sound. So they get 5 days off in between that and taking on an NC State team that right now, after last night, couldn't defend to save their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if NC State's a desperate team anymore. When Kevin Keats is talking about, and we're not doing the NC State preview now, but when he's talking about, well, they're not executing this and not executing that, there you get that little divide that's starting there. And
yeah, it's not great.
If Carolina jumps out early in that game, I can smell one of those State is getting rolled in Chapel Hill kind of games. I can smell that right now.
It happens really. If it's going to happen, it usually happens in Chapel Hill. I mean, there's plenty of evidence over the last 10 years. Just go look at some of those results. I mean, they have steamrolled them a couple of times. I kind of have. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on, but I have a similar feeling about Saturday's game in that respect. But AJ, before we move on a little bit, I want to talk about the remaining kind of couple of the remaining games coming up in March for the Tar Heels. But I want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors on this podcast. They've been with us for a very long time, especially if you're an avid follower of our Twitter and on our website as well. That's rogueshop.com, specialized in top shelf family grown hip products. So CBD, Delta 8, Delta 9. They've got any form you could ever want: tinctures, oils, candies, gummies, flour, whatever you want. They've got it. My wife still uses, I know this is the cream that you use all the time, AJ. My wife still uses that cream all the time on her back in particular. And so does, I think my dad uses it too. So they've been with us for a long time. Absolutely fantastic products. And you can save on your next order as well on their website, rogueshop.com, with the promo code Tar Heels 10. Tar Heels 10 is the promo code. Make sure you go check them out. Link is in the description below. But a big thank you to rogueshop.com for continuing to work with us and continuing to sponsor a lot of our content here at TarHeelIllustrated.com.
I've used their products, and Kevin Roy has used their products, and somebody else on our staff.
I've used it.
Maybe you have, and I want to say Dina when she was.
I think she did. I think she used the cream. Because I use the cream because she's got some joint issues and stuff, and I have shoulder issues at times, and I use the cream. And honestly, I don't look at this. I'm not in pain. Mobile, man. My wife uses it all the time. Carly uses it all the time, man. She absolutely loves it. So
because she's got the problem with her hands. So
she's got some hand problems. Her back's been bothering her. She's working out. Back's been hurting her a little bit, and she puts that on. And honestly, man, it helps a lot. It's amazing what that CBD stuff can do.
If they made shaving cream, my dad would want me to buy their shaving cream because he's telling me I need to shave.
I'm a fan of the beard. AJ, you know I'm a fan of the beard, man. If anybody knows, the people on this channel never seen me without a beard. So I'm a beard guy.
I was doing my walk last night, and I mentioned something to my dad. I said, did you watch the Three Things video? And he's an avid Carolina fan, so he consumes all of our content, of course. He's like, yes. He says, but I had to push the thing down because I didn't want to see you with all that crap on your face.
That's so old.
My mom passed 10 years ago, and he's sitting in the house, and he says, I'm looking at a picture of your mother right now, and she agrees. Go find a razor. I'm like, Kim told me not to shave.
It looks good, man.
Kim's been really sick, and I figure, you know what? What the heck?
Hey, man, I'm a beard guy. I'm never going to tell you to shave.
You notice it's a little, God, it's got some gray on the side, more gray than right here.
Sorry, man.
I don't know. It's a little grayer than I thought it would be and than I want it to be, but can't really do much about time, man. Time
makes you look wise. Makes you look wiser, AJ.
Well, I'll take that because Wise and AJ are not two things that have gone very much in common out of people's mouths before. So
I love it. I love it. Don't shave the beard.
But yeah, sure. I don't know. Maybe I'll keep it for a while longer.
I think you should. You got my vote. You got my vote on that.
Well, I wonder what video.
Like the video below if you think AJ should keep the beard. Let's like it. Let's see what.
And
happens.
if you, is it a beard? Does it qualify as a beard?
It's getting there. You got to keep it. You got to keep it going. You got to keep it going.
Well, Matt Bowers at UNC said to me last Friday, he goes, like the beard, AJ. And of course, I have to qualify with everybody. Well, my wife told me I can't shave it. So until the boss says I can shave it, then I'll keep it like this.
Hey, man, happy wife.
I would let it go a week before, but usually wouldn't let it go longer than a week unless it's the off season.
You got my vote. No, I think you'll be surprised at the amount of people that like the beard. The beards are in. They weren't in 50 years ago. They're in now. Beards are taking over. So keep the beard, AJ. I don't want to see it shave it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see you shave it before the season's over. You can touch it up a little bit, clean it up if you need to, but I want you to at least keep it till the Carolina season's over, which could go from March to early April. We'll see. Carolina fans will be hoping for early April, but yeah. Keep
my beautiful daughter Ellie said, "You're starting to look like Santa Claus."
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, right?
Well, I'm getting my steps, but in the season I pick up a couple pounds sometimes because it's so difficult.
It's a grind.
So I have to eat sweets sometimes to stay awake just to finish my work at night. So
I trust me, I get it, but
I hate doing that because it's not part of what I'm supposed to eat. But
yeah, it's easy.
The other night in the press room, I had to buy a little Snickers the other night in the press room at the little machine down there by the pool.
I mean, you need something
just to get myself a sugar because
man, it's 1 a.m. in the morning. You got to.
If I drink too many of these, my heart will explode. By the way, we should get this as a sponsor. Mm-hmm. Sponsor us.
Mm-hmm.
I drink these things all the time. They're synonymous with me. Also, Brett Friedlander and Connor O'Neill, who runs our Duke and Wake sites in the Rivals Network. He is a consumer. Let's get these guys to sponsor us. I am an avid consumer. If people wonder why I'm able to pump out content at 4:00 in the morning in arena in a dome in Syracuse with the cleaning crew around me doing stuff, it's because of these. This is free advertising, man.
Hey, yeah, I would love to get
it's okay. It's okay. It's all natural. My doctor said it's okay as long as I do no more than 2 a day. Sometimes I do 2.
Yeah, you don't want to be hitting the case. I think you and Brett single-handedly might keep them in business in some way, shape, or form. So the least they could do is sponsor the podcast. That's all I'm saying.
They just got free advertising.
Yeah, advertising.
Tag. I'm sure F5 Energy has Twitter.
Oh, you got to. Yeah, tag it. Tar Illustrated. We love it.
That stuff's expensive.
Very appropriate sponsor too. Like I said, as much as you use it, big in the media too. I mean, it's not just you. I mean, you need it. Late nights, man. A lot of late nights when it.
Well, I still haven't. I swapped with Kate Rogerson, local TV. I still haven't used the thing. She does something different. And I haven't used it yet. I'd like to know if she's used because I gave her a 5-hour energy to try. So I need to try her thing too. But yeah, a lot of people in the media use stuff. I say stuff like legal stuff, not bad stuff.
Red Bulls,
stuff.
5-hour energy.
Yeah, but Red Bull, that stuff will explode your heart.
Oh yeah, you don't want to drink too much of that. Yeah,
and there's zero carbs, so it fits in with my low carb lifestyle. We've done this. We've talked about this way too much here.
Whatever it takes, you got to stay awake this time of year, man. People, a lot of late nights in this gig. Trust me.
There are times when we're doing these shows and my eyes are just going like that. I'm like, and I've got a 5-hour right over there. I'm like, if I drink it right now, will anybody notice?
Turn your camera off and slam it back. You have to do that a couple of times. Pop a graphic on screen so you can bang one out. That's what we'll have to start doing. Oh, I love it. But AJ, let's keep
fantastic.
it. Yeah, we can sit here and talk about 5-hour energy and especially Rogue Shop. Big thank you to rogueshop.com. Check them out. Links in the description below. But AJ, let's move on a little bit. I want to look ahead to Carolina's obviously got 3 remaining regular season games left. NC State this Saturday, and then Notre Dame at home, and then obviously a trip to Duke to wrap this one up, plus ACC tournament and whatever happens in the NCAA tournament as well. So still potentially a lot of basketball left this season, and potentially not a lot of basketball left this season. Kind of depends how it ends up working out for Carolina. But I think when you look at the remainder of the schedule, and we'll hit on State after this before we wrap this one up a little bit more in depth. But when you look at the remaining schedule for North Carolina, I think 2 very winnable games at home And that Duke game is very intriguing matchup. I know with that win over Miami for North Carolina, Carolina's at least secured the double bye in the ACC tournament. So that's a huge positive. But you're still looking at a situation. I expect the Duke game kind of regardless of what happens, because I think Carolina beats State. I think Carolina beats Notre Dame. The 2 games they should win in Chapel Hill. I think Duke more than likely wins out going into it, although I do believe they do have to play Virginia the game before the Carolina game. So that could potentially be a little bit tricky, but with the way UVA is playing, I don't know what might happen with that.
Keep talking, because I'm
okay, I thought you were pulling something up over there.
Yeah, I am pulling it up. I usually don't do this, but what the heck? If I were talking about 5 Energy, I could look at my phone for a minute.
Yeah, man, do it. I'm not hating on it.
Yeah, I think that I'll tell you this though. I believe that if Carolina wins the next 3, they're a lock for the 1 seed in the West. And it might come down to having to win at Duke because Arizona won at Duke.
Yeah, that's a good point
this year. Mm-hmm. So I think that Carolina, if they win the next 3, they are a lock for a 1 seed. Right now, they're guaranteed at least, at the worst, a 2 seed in the ACC tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing too is they have as few as 5 games left. Like the least number of games, fewest number of games they have left are 5. The 3 regular season, 1 in DC at the ACC tournament, 1 in the NCAA tournament. And the most they have left are 12. So 3 here in the regular season, 3 in DC, and then 6 in the NCAA tournament. So between 5 and 12 games is what they have left. Duke has to go to NC State Monday. Mm-hmm. They go from playing Virginia at home to at NC State Monday. It's a similar type thing that Carolina had, because State's going to play a completely different style, but Virginia's going to have to play them in Cameron, and Virginia's a different team on the road than at home.
That's a good point.
So Duke has Virginia, at State, and Carolina. That's not easy. That's a tougher stretch than what Carolina has left.
Yeah,
I think State on the road as opposed to at home, as you alluded to a few minutes ago, is different.
Mm-hmm.
And Virginia, I don't think Virginia's as bad as they played of late. I just don't. If McNeely's hitting shots, I think that makes them a pretty good team, especially with the way they defend. So we'll see if Jeremy Roach will be huge in that game, because they need veteran dudes against that defense. So
oh God, do you?
I think Duke will win. I think Duke will probably find a way to win at State, but it wouldn't surprise me if Duke lost at State. Struggle a bit against UVA. Duke hasn't been great at home this year. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Carolina goes in there. Right now, I would expect Carolina to go 2-1. If I had to make predictions right now, I think they're going to handle State. And I think they'll be sloppy and beat Notre Dame. And Notre Dame, by the way, is coming. Mm-hmm. Shrewsbury's doing a nice job there. Mm-hmm. Burton's a really good player. His son, Shrewsbury's son, is pretty good. They got some nice players on that team. Yeah. And Booth, I saw Booth's dad play in college. I covered games he played in, Calvin Booth. They're not that bad. They're not the team that lost to the Citadel. That's for sure. And they got 6 wins in the league. So they're going to come and they're going to fight. Mm-hmm. They're tied with Miami. They're actually ahead of Miami in the standings right now.
Yeah.
So, but I think Carolina will be sloppy to win that game. They go to Duke. It'll be a good game. It'll be an entertaining game. It's just kind of hard to pick them to go in there and win that game, given the way they played since this winning streak ended.
Yeah, I'm the same way with it. I think Carolina goes 2-1 on that stretch, and I think ultimately what probably happens is Carolina and Duke finish with those same records in the league, and then I'm not exactly sure what the tiebreaker is after.
I think it's what your record is against the next team in the standings. If they're
I think you are right on that. And then after that, I think it's like a coin toss or something. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, and
it is something like that.
And right now, I mean, who's going to finish third? Who wants third?
Nobody, really.
Don't be. Yeah, I think Clemson's the 3rd best team, but I don't think they're going to finish 3rd.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Right now, you got Virginia and Wake in there, and that's kind of low end for double buys. I think Clemson's the 3rd best team in this league. I think Clemson's a team that could hang around for a while in the tournament. My only concern about Clemson is that they're not great at the point, which is why they've lost some close games.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're really good. They're really good getting to that point. And it's a matter of Chase Hunter and Gerard. Mm-hmm. So I think they're really good, and they play. I think they play Syracuse. I think Syracuse is good.
Yeah, they're not a bad team.
No. I think Red Autry's doing a good job there, and I think DC might be a tournament where somebody wins it from that pack.
Mm-hmm.
because I know Hubert will go in there intent on winning it because they want to hang a lot. Armando says they want to hang 3 banners: regular season, ACC tournament, NCAA tournament. That's a lot, but it wouldn't be the worst thing if they win a game. If they win out in the regular season, win the first game Thursday, lose Friday, get home, get your number 1 seed, and you're good to go, right? That wouldn't be the worst case scenario. I could see a Syracuse winning that thing. I really can. I could see someone like that. I could see Clemson winning it.
Yeah, no,
Clemson's a notch above. Clemson's a notch above and should be a double-bye team. They're good enough to be a double-bye team.
I think the problem in the league, and I know we're not talking about the league too much here, but it's just inconsistent. Besides really Duke and Carolina, it's like it's just kind of a coin toss every night and like you mentioned that we're talking about, well, who the heck really wants that 3rd spot? I think what I'm saying right now kind of illustrates that in particular. It's such a Duke and Carolina pretty, I wouldn't say pretty consistent in the league when you look at their records, and everybody else, it's like, yeah, Clemson could, win 5 in a row and then lose 5 in a row, and you wouldn't necessarily be surprised. Syracuse can put a streak together and they go lose.
Pitt's up there too, and Pitt can win on the road.
Yeah.
They lost to Clemson last night on the road. Pitt can win on the road, and they
Wake Forest.
Pitt can. The problem with Wake is they don't win away from home.
Yeah, they're good at home. Exactly.
What are they? 3-10 away from?
I think something like that. Yeah, it's not very good.
Yeah, Pitt can win on the road. I think Pitt can win in DC. But it may end up being Carolina Duke. I think you may just see a combination of 2 of the 3 Carolina Duke Clemson. I think Clemson's a notch above the other 12.
Yeah, and I think they might be better in a tournament setting potentially with the way they play and whatnot. I don't know. They haven't been great when you look at the long haul, the marathon that is the ACC. They just haven't been consistent enough, especially the way they started in it. But I do think they're a team that I do agree with you. I think I never really expect Carolina to win the ACC tournament championship. It really doesn't happen a ton when you look at the history of North Carolina, especially under Roy. I know Roy used to talk like, I don't really care about winning the ACC tournament. Great if we do.
But he's hated when people would bring up the cocktail comment and stuff. The last time Carolina won the ACC tournament was in DC. They beat UVA.
Yeah.
And that night, that championship game, Kenny Williams was a freshman, didn't play a whole lot. And Roy put him in the game about 13 minutes left and just said, get in Malcolm Brogdon's shorts and stay with him. And what was wild, and I was telling this story recently, a couple of us were recalling that, where Carolina was the 1 seed that year. So the 1 seed gets the best locker room, the biggest locker room in the postseason. So Carolina had, I think it was the Washington Capitals, the hockey team's locker room. It was massive, right? So I remember walking in that locker room after they won the ACC title, and Joel Berry won the Everett Case Award, the MVP. And way back in the corner is Kenny Williams. We hadn't talked to Kenny that year, and he never was available. But when you walk in the locker room, you could talk to whoever you want. It's not like they pull them out into a hallway or into a different setting. It's free game, right? Anybody can talk to who they want to, provided they're dressed. And which I almost had some danger the other day at UVA with some of the background stuff. But anyway, let's go over to Kenny Williams, descend upon him, and he looks up like, he was just terrified almost. He was still fresh. No idea,
like a deer in headlights.
And Roy put him in there to defend Malcolm Brogdon, and he got the job done and won the ACC title. And that was I think my first Kenny Williams interview, and ended up having a ton of them. Love Kenny, one of my favorite interview. And wow, that was the last time it was in DC. We probably should talk about this the week of the ACC tournament, but I do think that the next 3 games for Carolina are very important, that they play well. There is a belief that just win, smarts just win. This team needs to play well. They haven't had that feeling, when you finish work or you finish a job around the house, whether it's yard work or landscaping or a project you have, whatever it is, when you finish and you do a good job, and it's a good job, and you exhale and you have the real true feeling of satisfaction. I don't think the Tar Heels have felt like that since Duke. And they weren't great defensively against Duke, but they did some good things defensively against Duke. I don't think they felt like that since then. They've won 3 in a row, but I don't think that they've walked out. I don't think they've walked into the locker room after Virginia Tech, Virginia, and Miami and said, yeah, that was A+ stuff. I feel good about what we just did. They feel good about the win, because can't take it away, because whether you play an A+ game or a C- game, if you check the win column, it looks the same in the win column, right? But I think now that we're heading into March, they need to get lots of mojo things all on the same page. And I don't think they've been on the same page like they were in January. They need to get that stuff back. I think NC State's an opportunity to do it. I think Notre Dame's an opportunity to do that. And you take that to Duke, and when you roll into Cameron on the last Saturday of the season, regular season, that's when the tournament essentially begins. You've got to be a tournament team that night to win that game, and then moving forward. These next two games are really, really important to bring all that mojo stuff on into the same place, into the same space, and operate accordingly.
Yeah, 100%. You got to start stacking performances. I mean, winning is at the end of the day is the most important thing, but those performances, if you have positive performances, you can see, okay, maybe against Notre Dame, you don't end up beating them by as much as you'd like to, but you have a better overall performance from the likes of Ingram. You have more of a balanced approach from offensively with Cormac pitching in more and Armando pitching in more and RJ pitching in more. If that does happen, you're probably going to see a big win over a team like Notre Dame. But the performances, like you're saying right now, are more important because you've got to, like you said, you got to be ready to go come that Duke game. You just have to be, because after that, AJ, you could lose 2 games in a row and it's over. Season's over and that's it. So
I think
better. I agree.
I think if they win these next 2 games with RJ scoring around 15 points, it's almost the perfect scenario. Because if that happens, that means you need flare-ups. So they had flare-ups in the last month. Elliott had that flare-up in Coral Gables. Cormac had his 3-game stretch where he averaged about 18 points. He was 16 for 32 from 3 over a 4-game stretch until the other night. Armando kind of regained a lot of the Armando form, and they were focused on getting him the ball more. They haven't gotten it enough to him the last 2 games since the break. Now, they played 2 teams, Virginia, that makes it difficult to throw the entry, and Miami really did a fantastic job with their aggressive denials, and they made it tough too. But they've got to get him going. And it also, and Ingram had the game against Duke. Now, that's not Ingram. If you go back to UConn, it's funny. His last 2 20-point games are UConn and Duke. But everything in between is 13 and less. But really between like 8 and 13. So 7 and 13. That's who he is. But if you can get another 18-point game from him, 20-point game before you head over to Cameron, I think a 20-point game from him, a 20-point game from Cormac, and then Armando going, 17 and 12 in these next 2 games, statistically speaking, that would tell me that a lot of right stuff is happening. And and it gets some production from the bench too. And when the bench produces early in the first half, I really think Hubert needs to play them more in the second half as well. One of the things I like that this bench could bring is that if you're only going to go 8 deep right now, and that looks like that's what the case is going to be, but with Wojcik being the 9th guy and not really getting in unless there's circumstances that justify it or demand it, rather, Seth gives you something that none of the starters do. Jalen Withers gives you something none of the starters do. Jalen Washington with that really solid 8-foot game. And quite frankly, he's been a lot better on the boards. He's been more physical on the boards. He's ripped rebounds away from guys. Still has trouble defensively sometimes, but he still gives you different stuff and a different look. They change when they go to the bench, and that forces defenses to change. They can't get a beat on what the heels are doing. And I think sometimes Carolina can be predictable out there, which is why the offense struggles, especially late. I brought up earlier, I don't really know what the delay game is, but it doesn't look like whatever they're executing is probably what's drawn up. Maybe teams know exactly what's happening late, whereas they didn't know before. So when you do differentiate, it takes longer for team with your personnel. It takes longer for the other team to get a full beat on what you're doing. Because the offense is going to look different with Trimble on the floor. It just is. So is defense. It's the same thing with Withers. Withers gives you sort of a lot of stuff from the big man side that Trimble does from the perimeter guy side. So these are 2 opportunities for him to play the bench a lot and still get wins and have other guys do stuff. All that would be ideal for this team to get all that stuff, all those different forms of mojo into the same space. Like I was saying a few minutes ago, heading into Duke and then the postseason. I do think it's important. Man, if RJ goes 40 and 40 or 35 or something like that, I just don't think that's best case scenario for this team. It's great for him. And it's going to get a lot of notoriety, but I don't think it makes this team better heading into the postseason.
Yeah, if that's how they win the next 2 games or 3 games or whatever, that's how they play the next 3 games. That's a big red flag going into postseason. Because again, we've talked about it at length, but an over reliance on RJ, as good as he can be, is just not a recipe for success for this team. I always go back to that Duke performance, AJ, in Chapel Hill. That was it. That was the peak. That's as good as it. That's about as good. I'm sure maybe there's another level we haven't seen yet, but that we have seen an example of how good it can be offensively. That's where Carolina's got to be. And we've seen
they did good, but they did good things defensively in that game. They defended the 3 pretty well. And they're like Virginia. They ran Virginia off the 3-point line, which I thought they did really well. Just because Virginia started scoring a lot of points doesn't mean that you can't play well defensively against them. They did that. They were terrible against Miami. They did nothing to affect Miami's perimeter game. Nothing. Mm-hmm. It was terrible. So I agree with you on all that. And for first game against Duke, like I said, they actually did a pretty good job defending the 3, but it was the dribble drives they struggled with, other things. Yeah. But that's Duke. And sometimes, like I said before, that those games are separate from the season. Mm-hmm. Strange things happen. Remember David Robinson's kid had a big game a couple of years ago in the Duke Carolina game. So weird stuff happens. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it has no connection to what transpired previously and what transpires afterward. Yeah, it's just sort of a sidebar to the season.
Yeah, you're 100% right on that. We'll talk about State for a second and then we'll wrap it up. But real quickly, want to give another shout out to a sponsor on our podcast. That's MyPerfectFranchise.net. Big thank you to Andy Ludicky, who is the owner and founder of MyPerfectFranchise.net, guys. And if you've been with us for a while, particularly on our website and on Twitter too, you know a lot about it. But if you don't know, if you're looking to diversify, looking to leave the corporate rat race, gain control of your own income and schedule, and maybe even your goal is, you want to have unlimited PTO and the ability to create your own income and wealth, well, guys, look no further than MyPerfectFranchise.net. Andy's a longtime Rivals member, diehard college football fan, and he's a franchise veteran. Most importantly, you're probably sitting there asking, okay, what is MyPerfectFranchise.net? What he helps you do is he helps you open up a franchise and be your own boss and run your own franchise and create your own stream of income separate than that corporate world that a lot of us work in. And again, me and AJ always talk about this when we discuss what is My Perfect Franchise. There's so many different franchises, AJ. I think he has we talk about it all the time. Is it a dumpster franchise or something like that? Porta potty? I can't remember.
He is a dumpster. I think he's got porta potties as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so
the reality is that everywhere you look, you see products and you see millionaires.
Yeah. That's a fact.
And that's what Andy does. He gets people in, franchises aren't just restaurants.
No.
There are all kinds of things.
So many franchises. And what he helps you do in the process, 100% free process. He doesn't make money unless you make money. But what he does is he walks through every step of the way. He helps you kind of identify, okay, what do you want to get into? And then, okay, you want to open a franchise in this sector. Okay, cool. This is how we go about doing it. And he walks you through every step of the way. And I think the best thing about him is he's somebody who's done it. He used to work in the corporate world and he decided, you know what? I want to be my own boss. I want to start my own franchise. This is something he doesn't have to do for money. He makes plenty of money through the other franchises he owns. He does this from talking to him. He does this to give back and help people reach that American dream like he's been able to do through opening a franchise. So guys, call Andy, put your life and career in your own hands, 100% free, like I said. So what do you really have to lose? MyPerfectFranchise.net, links in the description below. Big thank you to Andy for sponsoring this show. Okay, real quickly, AJ, we're going to head out. It's been a little bit longer of a show, but just want to talk about State for a second. Carolina 22-4.
My face for 25 minutes.
Carolina 22-4 against State at home since 1999. I don't need to really go into the series history too much, but Carolina absolutely 8-2 in the last 10 matchups as well. It just seemed when State comes to town, Carolina doesn't tend to struggle too much with them. And I think that's what Carolina fans will be hoping for on Saturday again. But again, like we've talked about, for me, it's can Carolina put a good team performance in? I'm not saying RJ giving you 40. That to me is not a good team performance from North Carolina. It's great for him, but it's not good for North Carolina basketball as a whole moving forward. So what I want to see on Saturday, get Ingram more involved offensively. Can he pitch in some more points? Can he grab, 10 boards against Miami? Can he be a little bit more well-rounded offensively and help the team? I thought he was okay against Miami, but I've seen it. There's a higher level, and 3 for 13 from him, it's not good enough. And I think he'll tell you the same thing. Cormac, can he shoot from a higher clip from outside? We've seen the high end. He was so good against UVA. Can they see that a little bit more? And can he get into more of a consistent groove going into the postseason here coming up soon. And Armando as well. 4 shots isn't enough, AJ. He's got to shoot more. I know you mentioned that you noticed it at halftime of the Miami game that he, when he was warming up beforehand, that he looked like he was maybe a little bit banged up lower body. Something was bother him a little bit. So that 5-day break should be a big plus for him. But when you look at this State game, AJ, what do you want to see from North Carolina starting against NC State as they, dive into the real depths of the season that, could be a lot more games or could potentially just be 5 more for the Tar Heels?
Well, you first identify what is the best path for State to beat Carolina? Mm-hmm. It's to score a lot of points, because State can score. They've got a lot of dudes who can put the ball in the basket, and they could do it from a lot of different spots on the floor. One of the reasons why State's not going to play in the NCAA tournament is, although they could actually be a team that comes from that pack in DC, because they have some dudes that can go off for a few days, but it's because they have guys that can score. Horn, Burns, Morcell was really good last night down at Florida State, and he didn't get enough help. They have enough, and Diarra's been playing really well. I like him. Mm-hmm. He's been playing. He really flushes. He finishes really nicely at the rim. He's very direct to the rim. He's been playing more of late. So they have parts that can score. So to me, it starts on the defensive end for Carolina. They've got to be better. They've got to stop that dribble penetration. State's got a lot of dudes that can get in the lane. They got to stop that. And then they got to run them off 3-point line some. So it's kind of hard to do both, but that has to be the point of emphasis. And then don't let Burns get a lot of easy touches. And you'll do that by just basically owning up to your man principles. So if you defend the other guys, it's going to be a little harder to get Burns the ball, because Burns has had some success against Armando the last couple of meetings. Yeah. The second game last year in Raleigh, and then last month, I guess by the time they played, it'll be 2 months ago in Raleigh as well. He had some success for a while. So it begins with defense, and then State is not great defensively, so Carolina needs to score. Then you get out in transition. You need to get some buckets. You get in transition when you get stops and get some buckets. And like you said, the balance, there needs to be some form of balance there with this 100%. Team offensively. And they're going to need to play the bench, because State plays at a high pace, man. Mm-hmm. And I do believe the Tar Heels have been tired late in some games of late. That's why if you go back and listen to my Wednesday drop, the last several minutes against Clemson, awful. The last several minutes against Miami and Coral Gables, awful. The last 2.5 minutes against Syracuse up at the JMA Wireless Dome, awful. The last 3 minutes the other night, 3 minutes and 45 seconds the other night against Miami, awful. They can't be awful. Mm-hmm. And I think they're tired at times. Hubert needs to play the bench more. He does. I know it's a low-hanging fruit topic. I thought it was last year. I understood why he didn't, because I don't think they were going to get much from the bench. The Trimble, Withers, Washington trio gives them more what last year's bench than last year's bench ever would have. Mm-hmm. And he needs to use those guys. So they need to, if they're in a situation with 5 minutes left where they're going to have to get stops, it'll be very interesting to see how much juice they have left, depending on how Hubert's coached the game leading up to that point. I think it would be disappointing for Carolina if that's the case too, because like I said earlier, they have to have some foot on throat games. Mm-hmm. They need 1 or 2 of those. And I think State is more likely than Notre Dame, simply because the kids have shown us they don't always take certain opponents very, very seriously. And sometimes senior night is tough when you got a so-so opponent in there. We've seen a lot of teams struggle on senior night. So Saturday's a game it shapes up that it could be a mojo game, because State can play it into a mojo game because of the way the Wolfpack plays. But also, I think that Carolina, not having played great for a while, and Hubert really been pretty pissed off the other night about some things, and guaranteeing that Wednesday's film room session was going to be gory, that they should come out ready to roll Saturday afternoon and play well. So I think that they will, and I think they'll win fairly convincingly.
Couldn't agree more. I say the same thing. I don't really need to say anything else. I think Carolina wins against State on Saturday. I think they play well. I think we see a better performance. And yeah, we'll see what happens going into the remainder of the regular season. It's not many games left, just 3. Starts with State on Saturday afternoon in Chapel Hill. I think it's a good place to wrap this one up. About an hour on this show, which is what we kind of typically do on these UNC basketball shows. Ton to talk about. Make sure you keep it locked to TarLillustrated.com. Check out the drops AJ did Wednesday, and we'll have another one on Thursday and another one we'll do for Friday as well. So make sure you check those out. Hit the subscribe button too, and check out TarLillustrated.com. Just $8.33 a month to sign up. Great time to do so. All the time's a great time to do so over at our website, but especially in the thick of basketball season, postseason coming up, it's a great time to join our awesome community. And, when you think about it, spring practice ain't too far away either. So make sure you keep it locked to TarLillustrated.com. Big thank you to Rogue Shop. Big thank you to My Perfect Franchise. Links in the description below for them. If you like AJ's beard, like the video.
Let me know what you think.
That's what we're doing on this one. Reach out to us on Twitter. Like the video is the easiest way to do it. But hey, if you want to, go to Heel Illustrated. Yeah. If you like it, go to
Don't be too mean.
I like the beard.
I'm having a sensitive week. Don't be too mean.
Be nice to AJ over there, guy. I think you'll get more love on the beard than you think, AJ. I really truly do. I think you'll get a lot of likes on this one. So like the video below if you're feeling the beard, and we'll see y'all next time. Thanks.